I promise.
I just hit that anyways. Everyone was quiet, but it seemed official. Welcome to our board meeting for Monday, September 25th. At this time, we ask kindly that you stand for the singing of our national anthem. Once again, welcome everyone to our board meeting. I'd like to welcome trustees. We do have regrets from 3 trustees this evening. Trustees Archer, Johnstone, and Van Geffen. Otherwise, everyone else is present. Welcome to our senior staff, superintendents. Also welcome to those of you in our gallery this evening. I know we have quite a few recognitions that we'll be making this evening, so welcome to the boardroom. As well as those watching on our web stream, live web stream. You can watch later as well, your award presented to you in a really cool format online, as if it, you want to experience it more than once. But otherwise, welcome to everyone. At this time, as mentioned, it is that time of the month, our second board meeting of the month, when we recognize staff and students around our board. Tonight we have quite a few staff members that we are recognizing, so I'd like to call on our superintendent, Sharon Stefanian, to introduce us to our staff members this evening. Sharon?
Thank you, Chair White, and thank you for the introduction. As Chair White has shared, this is the time each month where we take a moment to reflect on the accomplishment of both our staff and students inside the walls of our schools and offices, but also outside of our walls and schools and offices, and look at the amazing impact that is being made. And so trustees have a list of individuals in front of them this evening who we will be recognizing for their accomplishments, both individually and collectively. The first group of award recipients this evening are being recognized for their role connected to the Eco Schools Initiative. And for those of you who may not be aware, the Eco Schools Initiative is about engaging the youth of today to protect the climate for tomorrow. It is an initiative that speaks to youth voice, youth action, and youth ownership. It is about youth leadership. And it's students taking responsibility for their classroom, for their school, and ultimately with an impact on the broader community. A direct application of what's learned in the classroom happening in the school and in the community. So the first group of individuals you're going to meet have been instrumental in bringing Eco Schools, the Eco Schools program to their schools. Now, I will share with you that you're going to meet 1 to 2 individuals from each school this evening, and each person I met this evening said to me, "But you need to know, I don't do it alone." And Eco Schools involves a committed team of staff, of students, and also of parents and community members. And so while we don't have all of those individuals here this evening, and we are going to be recognizing some specific individuals, important to know that there is a large team behind the recognitions this evening. So I would like to first, actually I don't believe Beth Karuna from Gordon Price was able to join us. I'm just going to look behind me, and Sue's shaking her head no. So please join me in a round of applause to thank Beth for her leadership at Gordon Price. And I would like to invite Kristen Ortwind from Fessenden School to come forward to receive a Profiling Excellence Award. And Fessenden School was recently awarded the Platinum Award for Eco Schools. So I'll ask Kristen to come down into the center to receive her certificate. Now, Kristen was one of those individuals who said to me, it's very, very important to me that individuals recognize that I don't do it alone, that there is a strong committee of students and staff, but in particular, she highlighted for me Erin Ridpath. Erin is a parent in the community, and together Erin and Krista co-chair the Eco Schools Committee. Kristen is described as embodying the concepts and philosophies reflective of environmental stewardship in the school, but also in the greater community. She reminds us through her actions that protecting the environment through recycling, conservation, regeneration, and restoration are extremely important and responsibilities that we all share. Kristen's described as an individual who lives her philosophy. Her kind, sensitive, and loving nature naturally invites others to explore, participate, and contribute. Kristen's continued leadership is a shining example of servant leadership, and her philosophy and practices continue to enrich the lives of all of us. And from a very short conversation this evening, it was very easy to see why individuals, both staff and community alike, want to be on board the initiative that she is leading. So Kristen, on behalf of all of us, congratulations to you on your Profiling Excellence Award, on your Platinum Award for Eco Schools, and congratulations to Aaron and the team for their support. Next on our agenda, we have Beata Latanska from Nora Francis Henderson, but I don't believe Beata was able to join us this evening. So please join me in congratulating Beata in her absence. I would like to invite Catherine Higgins from Norwood Park to come forward to receive a Profiling Excellence Award this evening for her work connected to the Bronze Eco Schools Award given to the school. Catherine is a middle school teacher at Norwood Park who has a passion for the environment and developing young leaders. During the 16-17 school year, Catherine combined the eco framework with student-centered actions, which ensured that Norwood Park would become an eco school in June of 2017. Both the staff, the students, and the parents of Norwood Park continue to be very proud of Catherine's accomplishments. Her leadership in the school is making a profound impact. The school is very much looking forward to continued work on the journey of receiving Eco Schools seals of certification. Please join me in congratulating and thanking Catherine for her leadership. I would now like to invite Hallie Swee from Pauline Johnson to come forward to receive a Profiling Excellence Award for receiving the Gold Eco Schools certification. Hallie has always been an enormously influential leader at her school, both in division teams, school climate teams, and the direction team. She is passionate about the environment, and over the past 6 years has moved Pauline Johnson's Eco School certification to the gold level. In that regard, Hallie's teaching has had a profound effect, teaching our students and engaging their loved ones in the work of our school. Truly a demonstration of leadership moving beyond the classroom and in the community. Please join me in congratulating Hallie for her work at Pauline Johnson and their Gold Award. Next, I would like to invite Crystal Lupel and Ryan Mowbray. Ryan is not on your agenda, but he is an equal part of the team at Ryerson to come forward to receive their Profiling Excellence Award for receiving a Gold Eco Schools Award. So these two individuals have been instrumental in their leadership in bringing forward Eco Schools to Ryerson School. Now, as I was expecting Kristen to be here this evening and not expecting Ryan to be here, I said, Crystal, I have a wonderful description of your leadership and the impact that you've had on the school, but I need to learn a little bit more about Ryan. So when I asked Ryan to, what would you like to share with me that I can share with our trustees and our audience this evening about you and your leadership? See, he's thinking she's not really going to say what I told her. And he said, well, you could tell them all that I'm an Aries. I like rollerblading. I'm single. And I do this because I really wanted my picture in the yearbook. And then, of course, as any good partner would, Crystal jumped in and said, no, the real reason he does it is because he dedicates every single moment of his spare time to the students in our school. And whether it's lunchtime or it's before school or it's after school, Ryan is always there for the students. And then we had an interesting conversation about who his mom was, and I didn't know if I could believe him, but for those of you who know Teresa Mowbray, Ryan is her son. Now let's talk a little bit about Crystal's leadership. So Crystal is a conscientious and dedicated individual who gives her all, both in and out of the classroom. So when she decided it would be a great idea to get Ryerson Middle School on the map as an eco school, she easily gained support from both staff and students alike. This led to the successful implementation of a number of requirements in order for Ryerson to gain its eco school official designation. Today, Crystal can be seen and heard throughout the school building, ensuring staff and student activities have a minimal negative effect on the environment. And it's very, very clear in conversation that these two individuals make a wonderful leadership team, and collectively they are making a huge difference on the lives of both students and staff at Ryerson Middle School. So please join me in congratulating both Crystal and Ryan on their award. Next on our list for recognition this evening is our final recipient for Eco Schools, and the recipient is Stephanie Trepanier, but I don't believe Stephanie is here, and Superintendent Dunlop is nodding her head to me, so a round of applause to congratulate Stephanie. And one final round of applause for all of the leadership happening within our schools that is developing student leadership, student voice, and having a profound impact on the environment. Moving into the next category, we're going to be recognizing Principal M. Del Sordo, who is the principal at Dundas Valley Secondary School, together with a group of amazing student leaders. So if I could ask M to come forward, along with Devin Curtis, Taylor Cumming, and Morgan McLeod. I don't believe Maria Prekop and Sierra Corda are here this evening. Oh, Sierra is here. Sorry. Okay, come on down. So we are recognizing this wonderful leadership group this evening because collectively Dundas Valley Secondary School received a Premier Award for accepting schools. So for those who may not be aware, the Premier Award for accepting schools is awarded to school teams that have done exceptional and innovative work in creating a safe and inclusive accepting school. In the spring, only 10 schools in the province of Ontario were awarded this designation. And in Hamilton Wentworth District School Board, we had one school of the 10, and that is Dundas Valley Secondary School. So a round of applause for the school. So Dundas Valley is very, very proud of the amazing young people that you see in front of you and the wonderful leadership of their principal, Mr. Del Sordo. The school is very proud of student leadership, paving the way for a more peaceful world. Building a school vision that centers on empathy, respect, and learning through the lens of human rights means students hinge their thinking and passions on the school's vision by making curricular connections constantly. These 5 students, don't have them all here, 4 and the one I mentioned earlier, represent all the students and staff who are making Dundas Valley Secondary School an accepting and inclusive school where all belong. And folks may recall that Dundas Valley was created as the amalgamation of 2 other schools in 2014. And collectively, it was that vision and passion of creating what does our future look like together, creating a new school vision, embracing recommendations from the Truth and Reconciliation Commission, and looking at the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Collectively, these individuals and their leadership has led to a place that we can all be extremely proud of. So please join me in congratulating Principal Del Sordo and his wonderful group of student leaders on their Premier's Award and their Profiling Excellence Award. That concludes Profiling Excellence for the month of September.
And just before everyone runs out of the room, this is our... on behalf of the Board of Trustees, I just want to say thank you to all of our staff members and students that we recognize this evening, both for the Eco Schools and Principal Del Sordo for his Premier's Award for Accepting Schools. It really is an honor to have all of you join us this evening, hearing your stories and the small things and large things that you've done to change the lives of our students. And you truly are leaders within our community. So thank you so much for all of the work that you do. And have a great evening. And we'll see you again soon in your schools. Thank you. Thank you for that. So at this time, we are looking for approval of the agenda. Everyone should have the agenda in front of them. Do we have a mover and seconder? Trustee Beatty, seconded Trustee Hicks. Questions, comments? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And Trustee Danko temporarily out of the room. Any declarations of conflict of interest on the agenda this evening? Seeing none. We'll move to the next item. Actually, just prior to that, Trustee Bingham, in light of some of the news this morning, wanted to say a couple of words. So I'll just turn the microphone over to Trustee Bingham for a short moment.
Thank you. I just wanted to say kudos to our bus drivers for this morning. With the unfortunate accident that happened, we landed in a position where, yes, we already have late buses, but wow, they have had to go through, some of them for hours, sitting in traffic in that extreme heat and humidity, but all of them, at one point or another, during the day, the morning, early afternoon, all got our kids to their respective schools safely. And that makes, that just says everything for our drivers. The kids are first and foremost, and I just want to say thank you to all of our drivers today.
Thank you for that, Trustee Bingham, and that included your son as well, so you know that very intimately in terms of the patience and dedication this morning. So thank you for that. We'll move right to item number 6, Governance Committee Report from September 12th. And as chair of the committee, I will turn the chair of this meeting over to Trustee Vice Chair Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. If you'd be so kind as to bring forward the Governance Committee report from the 12th of September.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm happy to bring forward the report, item 6 in the agenda. There's one item that was discussed in the public portion of the agenda. The committee discussed trustee special committee meeting times. We had a discussion. There isn't an action item for consideration, but a couple of takeaways that we had requested through the director and the trustee officer. So in a summary, or at least a summary of the discussions, trustees felt that we could potentially better utilize Monday evenings, knowing that that is the evening that we all set aside to commit to the board. We do have 2 board meetings on Monday evenings a month. We've also been utilizing info sessions 4 times a school year as well. But we felt that we could better utilize Monday nights. So one of the suggestions to the trustee officer and director was to move info sessions from a Monday night to before a board meeting, potentially have the items as timed items, so half an hour for one item, half an hour for another, with hard deadlines, and then going into a board meeting potentially. And then that would free up possibly 1 or 2 Mondays per month, and with that, we could potentially move some of our committees to Monday nights. And the committees discussed were Program Committee, Governance Committee, and Human Resources Committee. The 2 that we felt couldn't be necessarily moved to a Monday night were Finance and Facilities, sometimes due to the type of material, the staff that attend those meetings and the frequency of the meetings as the year carries on. And the policy committee, once again, it might make those nights a little bit too difficult to manage. So those committees could be focused, or the discussion in terms of the calendar is to focus them or schedule them on Wednesdays, so a Wednesday afternoon and an evening. So with this, essentially the commitment, if followed, would ask trustees to set aside a Monday evening and potentially a Wednesday evening for policy and potentially a Wednesday afternoon for finance. So that way, from a scheduling purpose, it's not a guessing game each and every month, and potentially it would, the premise of the discussions, it would be to increase trustee participation in trustee committees. So by sticking to this schedule, it could potentially increase the participation and membership of each committee. None of this is final, so I say all of this with one caveat, which is that committees are autonomous among themselves. Our rules of order allow committee chairs to schedule meetings, so, and depending on its membership and its discussions with the assigned superintendent. So while this isn't a thou shalt, this is a bit of a rough template suggestion, but not to take any authority away from a committee chair and the committee in scheduling itself. So those were the takeaways. The trustee officer will return to the next governance meeting in November to outline what it might look like on a calendar. There might be some other small adjustments, but this is potentially a starting point for scheduling of committee meetings as of December 1st. But once again, there is quite a bit of flexibility in doing so. So at this point, I'll move the item, but I'll also mention that there is plenty of flexibility in discussion at this point. So any suggestions or discussion is welcome and valued at this time.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Danko, I saw first. Look to other trustees for questions, comments at this time. Trustee Danko?
I just wanted to thank the Governance Committee for discussing the item and even considering a potential change to the scheduling process. As someone with a slight change in my job description and my job hours, it does really limit the ability to participate in some of the committees, and I would love to see more trustees available to participate in committees like program and policy. So hopefully this is just a discussion that leads to a positive outcome for all trustees and promotes more engagement for people who do have work schedules that make it difficult to attend daytime meetings.
Okay, thank you, Trustee Danko. Any other questions, comments from trustees? Okay, seeing none, all in favor? And that's unanimous. I'll turn the chair back to Chair White.
Thank you very much. Oh, and I forgot to mention thanks to Trustee Pattison and Trustee Danko for attending the meeting as non-governance committee members, but your input was definitely valuable in the discussion, so thank you for your participation. Next, we have item 7, policy committee meeting from September 13th. Chair of the committee, our vice chair, Jeff Beattie.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to bring forward the committee report from Policy Committee from the 13th of September. What trustees will see before them, the action item, item A, what we're discussing here in terms of the pillar policy statements, these are overarching statements that are intended to give an overview of the pillar policies that this board approved in late spring of the last school year. It's intended to be something of a preview of what you may expect to find in those different pillar policies rather, that would be representative of the different policies located there. Also, after we spent a great deal of time aligning those and coming up with those policy statements, we did have a conversation about a fraud management scoping report, which you'll see as item B. And basically what this would entail is staff will come back to us at the next meeting or the meeting after. I think it'll be November actually when this comes back. And we've asked them to look into the creation of a fraud management policy that would be appropriate for an organization of our size. And given that most boards are, at least in the early stages across Ontario, of developing similar policies to be able to deal with instances of fraud in a uniform and fair manner. So at this time, Mr. Chair, I would move the report. Happy to take any questions at that time.
Thank you very much, Trustee Beatty. Looking for a seconder. Thank you. Trustee Danko. Questions, comments, or discussion? Trustee Deeth first, followed by Trustee Bingham.
So I just a couple of comments on the policy pillars. The pillars. And I'm just wondering, are these sort of now set in stone, or is there some room for adjustment? Is that what do we have an opportunity to discuss that here?
Thank you. So right now, they're here for approval, so they are recommendations. So previously, pillar policy would look similar to any other policy, but it's not necessarily meant to be a policy itself. They're really a category of other policies, so rather than what you would see following the purpose or mission statement, or I guess purpose, would be now within other policies or move to other policies. So in terms of the purposes that you see attached, they're here for approval. So anything that the board wishes in order to either change them, tweak them, send them back, what have you, now's the time to speak.
So in that vein, the communications and community engagement pillar, which is 7A-1, in the second paragraph, in the first sentence of the second paragraph, HWDSB recognizes the important role that all its stakeholders play in the lives of students in the delivery of public education. I'm just wondering, my thought was in there and in supporting student success.
Okay. So we're looking at 7A-1. 7A-1. There we are. So we're looking at the first sentence at the end where it mentions delivery of public education and potentially student success. Okay.
Because I just think it encompasses more than just public education.
Okay.
So do you want me to kind of go?
So I think that's
through all of them,
workable.
or
I mean, we don't have to necessarily wordsmith it exactly, but
Yeah.
just the concept of student success within that sentence or paragraph, let's just mark that. Let's just see what any other suggestion trustees have, and we'll figure out if we want to move them as one or anything else. So do you have any other suggestions other than that?
That was the only one under that pillar. Do you want me to go through
Yeah,
pillar by pillar? And
just keep going. Let's just compile any suggestions, and then we'll see just kind of by consent if we want to make the changes, and if not, we'll move amendments. But let's just see what thoughts are out there.
The other one under other facilities, I'm not sure whether this would fall within facilities or finance. And I think it would have been helpful. Trustee Beatty did send me sort of all the pillars that fall under this, and I know it's important to look at the pillars that fall under this. And I realize this is at 10,000 feet kind of thing. But the other thing that we've talked about in the past, and I think that we recognize, is the importance of being a good neighbor. And I don't know whether that falls under facilities or finance, just that we're always conscious of being, when it comes to our facilities, and that's where I was thinking of it, although when I was looking at the policies under it, I'm not sure if it falls under finance and how we allot our funds. But there has been discussion around the importance of being a good neighbor not just in upkeeping our schools, but also in anything else that is going to impact the neighborhood from that school. So that was the thought on that one.
Okay. We'll take note of that, and we'll just keep compiling them, and then we'll go back through them.
Okay. And the other one, and I haven't got the exact wording on this, under the safety and well-being pillar, 7A-5. When I think of well-being, again, I think beyond the walls of our schools, but where we talk about promotes and maintains a safe, caring, healthy, inclusive, and equitable learning and teaching environment. I'm just thinking that we go beyond the teaching environment, especially when it comes to well-being. The importance, and I don't want to enter into partnership territory, But I'm just thinking about the importance of, like I said, it goes, especially around safety and well-being, it really goes beyond the teaching environment of our schools, out into homes and communities. And we know the impact our communities and our homes and caring adults and all that has on the safety and well-being of our students. Then the last one I had is on student learning and achievement pillar 7A-6. And the only comment on that one was sort of an addition, was that students are prepared for the next phase, whether post-secondary or the workplace. So we talk about leading to improved student outcomes. But I just, again, I think it's just, I know we're doing it. I think it's, again, just recognizing how important it is to prepare them for beyond high school. And those are my comments.
Okay, I have all 4 of those noted. Before we start discussing each one, let's look to other suggestions if trustees have any, and then we can kind of see where everything fits. So further discussion or questions, Trustee Bingham's on the list. Go ahead, Trustee Bingham.
I'm reading the facilities pillar, 7A-2, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it, and I read it, and then something was bothering me about it. So I don't know if it's just me, if it's wording or whatever, but when I'm reading it, I'm reading HWDSB believes staff, students, and community should have the ability to access schools and other board facilities that are equitable, efficient, sustainable. What is equitable, efficient, and sustainable? The ability to access the schools or the facilities themselves? Like, to me, there's kind of a dual little thing there.
So Trustee Beatty, do you have a response to that? Because I know the committee discussed each of those words and their meanings. Trustee Beatty.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I think as an opening statement, and maybe this will clear up some further questions, we have to be reminded that these are intended to be previews of the individual policies that fall beneath these pillars. So they're not a vision mission statement. They're not a strategic direction per se. And they have to be worded in such a way that people know what they may be able to expect underneath them. And so in, for example, the facilities pillar, there's a number of specific sub-policies, if you will, that fall underneath the facilities pillar, including boundary review, inclement weather and board cancellations, naming of schools, property disposition, pupil accommodation review, and use of board facilities. So when we are having the conversation at our committee meeting, what we were trying to do is come up with phrases and statements that would, in a preview kind of way, give a demonstration of what you would find in those pillars. So when we talk about equitable, efficient, sustainable, it speaks to the ability of the facilities to stand up the test of time over the long term, to have certain key benchmarks in them that would be found across the system in all different schools, speaking a lot to our elementary benchmark strategy. And sustainable, of course, being able to maintain and upkeep over the longer term. Hopefully that answers some of your concerns.
Thank you. Trustee Bingham, how are your concerns?
If you have to explain that every time somebody said, "What's that mean?" then it's not completely clear in that. I understand that, sure, but if you have to use that kind of an explanation every time somebody read this and said, "Okay, which one is it? Yeah. Is it one? Is it the other? Is it both?" So that's where, in reading this statement, it's not totally clear.
Okay. So with that, do you have so just on that point, we can park that as well, but just as a whole, you feel something is missing. Do you have a suggestion, though, for discussion, or just the observation? Okay, thank you for that. I'll look to other trustees for notes, comments, suggestions, et cetera. Trustee Pattison?
Thank you, Chair White. And after Trustee Beatty's explanation of how this has come to be, these pillar statements, got guess trying to understand whether or not this is addressed in one of our existing policies, but I think Trustee Deeth touched on some things in her statements there. And for me, thinking about how everything that we do to our facilities and their existing presence and how that affects the community, you think of construction projects that we've got going on. I know King George is one project, for instance, in my area where we worked very, very closely with the neighbors and everything we did with those properties and had a lot of discussions and made changes based on that feedback. So I think something in here, just the importance of always thinking of our partners and our community and everything we do. We're doing some playground revitalizations, and we've had some feedback from both community and groups that utilize their facilities, and making sure that they're engaged in all the processes for our upgrades, our new builds, changes, and whatnot. So, yeah, I guess just to recognizing the importance of these partners in the community, and that they should be consulted and updated. And I'm not really sure that we've really addressed how our facilities affect the communities as a whole there.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Trustee Beatty, do you have a comment or response?
Sure. Thank you. And through the chair, again, a lot of conversation when we're trying to wordsmith these and make sure that they're as universally understood as possible. We take them apart, we put them back together, and in fact, we did that several times during the course of the meeting, recognizing that at the end of the day, it's intended to be a statement of the policy that falls below it, not necessarily vision, mission, or strategic direction. With regards to the neighbor and the good neighbor component, what you, I think, described involves, you said, feedback and things like that, Trustee Pattison. I think the conversation that we had at committee is a lot of those things fall more aligned under the communication and community engagement pillar, not necessarily specifically under the facilities pillar. When we interact with our communities, we're engaging with them, we're communicating with them, and we feel that that is better suited to fall underneath the communication and community engagement pillar. And that is why the pillar for facilities deals more specifically with some sort of bricks and mortar issues as opposed to communication. That is covered under a different pillar.
Thank you very much. Further discussion. Trustee, you already, is there a further comment? Sure, go ahead, Trustee Deeth. I'm just trying to compile any of the suggestions and then kind of work back through them. So if you have something on that point, please go ahead.
Just in the being a good neighbor, I think it goes beyond communicate. What I was talking about with facilities is when we're building a school, when we're putting an addition on, when we're renovating, when we're doing anything, that we just make sure that we are being a good neighbor. So it goes beyond communication and engagement. It's just always keeping that top of mind, right? So, even the way we lay out our playgrounds, the way, traffic patterns, like all kinds of things that we're always keeping in mind. I know we do. I'm just saying that I just felt it should be right in that pillar policy.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Okay, so if we can just slowly, quickly, moderately work our way through the suggestions, and we'll just see quickly where we land. If there's anything necessary, we can send it back to the committee. Some of the items might be simpler. I have 6 suggestions noted. So just first, I'll move this quickly. Communications and community engagement pillar, there was a suggestion to add student success after the reference to public education. Is there any difficulty with that around the table? Good, okay. 1 down. Comments on facilities. Let's park facilities for a second. I had nothing on finance, nothing on human resources. The suggestion on safety and well-being pillar was a reference beyond teaching. Jeff Beatty can perhaps elaborate on this. The reference under those pillars is almost strictly focus on students and staff under safety and well-being. If you look at the the policies under the pillar, that's the focus. In terms of beyond teaching and community, those are found within other pillars. So that's why the reference is pretty specific. In the second point, to learning and teaching environments for students and staff, because the community references, the parent references do not belong under that pillar. It's not that we don't appreciate them or we're not behind that direction. It's they belong in a different place. So I'm not sure how trustees feel about that, but that's simply why they weren't there. Trustee Beatty, do you have something to add from the committee?
Yeah, just for the reference of trustees, I've got just a brief list. This is perhaps some of the confusion is that we did pass the realignment of the pillar policies back last school year. It may not be front of mind, so I've got the list here. Under safety and well-being, the pillar policies that you will expect to find there include arrivals check, bullying prevention, code of conduct, equity and inclusive education, medical health supports, nutrition, and student behavior and discipline. So when we're crafting a pillar statement that tries to encompass in a rather brief fashion all of those things, we want to make sure that we're not, I suppose, including things in that overarching statement that people then wouldn't actually find in those policies that could lead to some confusion, and we want to try to be as straightforward as possible.
Thank you very much. Trustee Deeth?
So in regards to that, and I did, in reading the policies, like bullying prevention, and I think that's where I was, again, thinking that it expands beyond the teaching environment. If we're going to address bullying, it has to go within, outside of the teaching environment, right? Because we know a lot of bullying is online, or bullying happens after school, or bullying happens. So that I think policy in particular made me think about beyond the teaching environment. And I think there was a couple more as well that made me think that that we have to think beyond the teaching environment. Does that make sense?
Yes. Let's just take a look here. I just want to reference this quickly. Okay, so we're just quickly cross-referencing the policies underneath and just trying to recall the discussions at the committee. But I think once again, looking at the committee tried to best capture what it found in terms of the policies underneath the pillar. So we didn't want to, and I'm not speaking for the committee, I'm just trying to summarize, so Jeff, cut me off if I'm incorrect. But the committee tried to just summarize to the best of its ability without extending too far as mission statements for beyond those policies. So I think the committee felt it captured it without going beyond the teaching and workplace environment, because that's mainly where you would find things like arrivals checks or code of conduct or health supports, nutrition. I mean, it's mainly within those areas of safety and well-being. So not to say those themes do not extend to other areas, it's just not the focus of that pillar. So that was the reasoning, but if there is a desire, because I'm not seeing consensus, to change that, I'd need a recommendation or amendment from the board in terms of this pillar. So if there is a suggestion or recommendation, we can run it by trustees. Otherwise, we can move on or once again, make a decision or send this one back to the committee. So I'm looking for either a suggestion or we'll move on to the next policy. Trustee Deeth?
Can you just, under this, does mental health fall under this?
I think mental health is mainly student achievement.
Okay, so it's not.
Deputy Minister, what's your name? Associate Director, Peter Sovern.
Thank you. And through the chair, to answer Trustee Deeth's question, it does fall under safety and well-being, some of our supports for mental health.
So through the chair, so I think on that one, like I said, I think the two that made me was the bullying one and the mental health is because, again, it's important to go outside of the teaching environment, connecting students to other supports and that. So that's why I think teaching environment just sounds limited to me, that we're just doing it within the schools, and we're not. It has to expand out beyond the teaching environment.
Thank you for that suggestion. So just, I see a lot of hands and whatnot. Just to change it up, why not? We'll go to Trustee Danko, another committee member. Trustee Danko?
I wonder if something as simple as changing environment to community would capture the differences, because the community extends beyond the classroom, beyond the schoolyard. It's more inclusive. That just might solve the problem.
Okay, so we can take that away, whether it's community or another word. Is it a strong preference? I mean, but I think that's a good point in terms of what's hanging up the discussion. It's really teaching environment, quote unquote, and what that really is referring to. Okay, so let's just highlight those two words, and we'll either find a quick fix and send it back, or the committee can discuss something to replace those two words. Okay, we'll move past this one. We'll go to we have two more remaining. Student learning and achievement pillar. There was a suggestion at the end where it mentions improved student outcomes, and Trustee D suggested something that goes beyond high school, so whether it's graduation or work experience. Did I capture that correctly?
Yeah, I think it's just mentioning leading to improve student outcomes, but beyond that is that students are prepared for the next phase, whether post-secondary or the workplace. So I think the importance on really preparing our students well.
Okay. Trustee Beatty?
Thank you, and I do appreciate the suggestion. My counter, although we're not cross-debating, but what I would suggest that the problem may arise that there is no specific policy that governs what students do after they leave our system, and putting a statement in the overarching policy statement that may lead to some confusion, and we tried very hard to keep this very clean and relevant to the individual policies that are there. And so without a policy that falling beneath that, I'm not sure how it integrates in with what's been proposed already.
Thank you. Further discussion on the additional reference? Okay. What I'll do, I'll ask the question. I mean, the observation that I would just throw out there, and it's not one way or the other. I think at the committee level, referring to improved student outcomes would capture any and all of the above. So rather than listing all of the outcomes, the idea of increased graduation rates is an improved student outcome. Obviously, success in the future references that as well. It's positive student outcomes, but whatever that means in a succinct fashion is what the committee felt is here. So on this one, I'll simply ask trustees whether they would like further reworking of this, which would require a referral to the committee, or if we are happy with the wording here. So does a trustee would like to make a referral of this pillar back to the committee, or should we move forward? Trustee Deeth?
I'd like to make a referral back to the committee for that one, just to,
perfect.
So we can have some more discussion on it.
Thank you. So do we have a second to refer the student learning and achievement pillar policy back to policy? Seconded by Trustee Pattison. Any discussion on this item? Trustee Hicks, and then I'll go to Trustee Pattison.
Keeping in mind what a pillar policy is, it's a general statement what's to follow within the guidelines and the policy itself. Every year we get into trying to expand the statements within the pillar policy, and you get yourself into all kinds of problems. So I'm happy with the way it is.
Thank you. Trustee Pattison.
Thank you, Chair White. I appreciate all these concerns that trustees have brought about some wording, and the quick suggestion by Trustee Danko of a simple word by just changing environment with community. I think it seems to work well, and perhaps we can do something with this one. So somehow just change the word outcomes, or add another word that maybe just alludes to a more broader. Like I know you're saying that word itself does, but dilute itself, in your opinion, to a broader. But if there's another word that we can add there, then it certainly doesn't hurt to explore something like that. So thank you.
Okay. Thank you for that. Any further comments on the referral motion on just this pillar to Policy Committee? Trustee Beatty?
Thank you through the chair, and I do appreciate that we do want to try to get this right. Again, I have to come back to without having a specific policy that governs that. I don't know. I envision a conversation taking place again that has already taken place at the committee level in how that would be accomplished. So I respect the direction, but we had a lot of conversation over this, and I just don't know how we'd come back to this board with anything substantially different than what you see before you. This and all pillar policy statements, when they were initially brought forward, and trustees may recall when they looked in their packs for policy committee, they were much, much larger. And we've really refined, and in some cases we went back and started over again a second time on these. And I feel strongly that in some cases these are about as good as we're going to get. And with respect, I wouldn't support sending it back to the committee, this particular one.
Okay, thank you very much, Trustee Beatty. Trustee Passon, you've already spoken once. Is it a clarification?
Just a point of a clarification, maybe just to staff. I think in a lot of our whether policies and a lot of our wording, we often talk about our desire for outcomes related to whether community, workplace, or post-secondary, I believe. Right? So community is mentioned as another option. So I think we do talk about various different outcomes. So that's my...
Fair enough. Okay, so we'll go to a vote on the referral motion for just this one pillar policy statement. All in favor of referring back to the committee? Trustees Bingham, Pattison, Deeth. Those opposed? Trustee Hicks, Mulholland, Beatty, White, Danko, student trustees Jail and High. The referral motion is defeated. We'll move on now to the final pillar policy, which is the one we skipped, which is facilities. This had a couple of different suggestions as I flip my pages. Here we are. Okay, so 7A-2, this is the facilities pillar. You can see the policy statement written below. In terms of the feedback, there was a suggestion for a reference to a good neighbor. There was also a suggestion that overall it was a bit unclear. And then lastly, some reference to community, I believe, was suggested. So right now, those are just the feedback. That's just the summary of feedback we've received from trustees. I'd look for something tangible from trustees at this point to either change what we see written, either by consensus or a suggestion or a referral back to the committee. See none of the above, then the motion on the floor would be to approve. So I'm looking for feedback. Trustee Danko?
The one piece that Trustee Bingham brought up was, are the facilities equitable or is access equitable? And I see the point grammatically. So I would suggest that instead of the second line saying the community should have the ability to, it should say should have equitable access to schools. And I think that deals with that piece. I don't have a suggestion for the other part.
Okay, thank you. And I actually, and with that, I'm not sure if we got an answer, and I'm just looking to super deputy director, whatever it is, Sovereign. The word equitable, I think the intent was equitable facilities, not equitable access. That was my understanding. It was equitable facilities, so comparable facilities in terms of their quality and program offerings, not based on its facilities, et cetera. But I could be mistaken myself, Mr. Deputy.
Thank you, and through the chair, I would say from my recollection of the discussion at the policy committee that all of the words after board facilities would describe the facilities themselves and all that is associated with them. So equitable, that there's efficient, there's sustainable, and so forth.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I think, so in terms of Trustee Danko's suggestion, I think it's the equitable, not access, but the equitable facilities. Maybe that could be cleaned up. I mean, I'm just looking around the table. I don't think we're going to necessarily wordsmith this here, but I think the struggle is those couple words, the ability to access. You know, that's where I'm seeing the hang up. I'm just looking around the table. Does someone have a quick solution to that, or should that be sent back to the committee just to clean it up for the purpose of clarity? We could take out the ability and just have the community should have access, access to schools and other school board facilities. Yeah. I think we had the right to access at the committee. We also had a number of other things. Just in terms of, does the community have a right to access? We want to create the conditions where they are accessible, but it's not necessarily a right. I think that was the struggle at the committee level. We want all of those folks to have access. So I think it might just be believed staff, students, and the community should have access to schools and other board facilities. But then I guess you get hung up on the word on what access means without any further implications. So perhaps, just for the sake of the conversation, we'll note that. And there was the other suggestion for a good neighbor. I'm just looking to sense from trustees, would the committee like, would the board like the committee to take a second look at this one for the sake of clarity? Trustee Pattison?
Yeah, I still think, I know you do have the community aspect and the community engagement, but you know, I'm looking at all these policies, and most of them are a couple of paragraphs, and the facilities one is just one short paragraph. You could almost take that second paragraph in the community engagement and put it in the facilities as well, because it is separate. I mean, facilities, the valuable insight and experience in our communities and in that role and in keeping our, you know, we've already got counselors and everybody, other companies partnering with our facilities, you know. So I think that might add to that policy as well.
Okay, thank you. And one thing at the committee, I think we learned that, what did we learn as we went along? Less is more in many cases. So we actually, I think, did a lot more deleting than we did additions. But perhaps that's why the committee may want to look at it quickly again. Trustee Hicks?
I'm of the opinion that I read this a couple times last night. I really like what's here.
Oh, cool. Good.
Because when you think of the situation we went through of raising rates and everything, all we're saying is that the community should have the ability to access schools and other board facilities, period, that are fair, efficient. We can sustain them over a period of time, and that would include the rental agreement and everything. Keeping in mind that what's below this has to flow from this statement. And I believe it does.
Thank you. So in terms of that, thank you, Trustee Hicks. Any other further suggestions? I'm looking for something tangible in terms of either a change or a referral or an approval. So if there are no suggestions, we'll look to an approval then. Does anyone else have any other suggestions? Trustee Deeth and then Trustee Bingham. Trustee Deeth?
I just want to say, I mean, I appreciate and respect the work that policy did on this. I'm sure you spent a long time, and you know, when you're not there, you don't hear all the conversations that went on, and I appreciate that you're trying to edit it down and keep it simple. So I just want to say that. So, and I know a lot of this other stuff will be captured in the policies below. So if it's approved, I'm fine with that.
Thank you. Trustee Bingham?
Something Trustee Hicks just said, at the end of the ability to access schools and other board facilities, period, can this be two sentences to make enough sense out of these facilities are equitable, efficient, sustainable?
Potentially. I think from the committee's point of view, the equitable, efficient, sustainable references try to capture the policies underneath. So a lot of them tend to be fiscal in nature, even though there's a finance pillar. But when you think about boundary reviews or accommodation reviews, or inclement weather, property disposition, use of board facilities, et cetera, a lot of it is based on equality, efficiency, sustainability, fiscal responsibility, high quality working environments, schools, et cetera. So I think that really tries to capture a good portion of the policies underneath. Without it, I think it could still exist, but it might take a bit away. And also looking at the length of the other purpose policy statements, it may not align. So it's up to the committee, though. It's definitely a thought. Trustee Danko?
Sorry, just to clarify, I think Trustee Bingham's suggestion was to split it into 2 sentences just to make it more readable, as opposed to taking away the content. I may be wrong, but I had something else to add.
Let me rephrase that then. Trustee Brigham, that's brilliant. Excellent job and great observation. Let's do that. Are we happy with that change? Or once again, I'm looking for either a referral or a suggestion. We'll take that suggestion. We're happy. There's all smiles. Okay, very good. Or at least the frowns are lessened. So at this point, we'll take that suggestion, no problem. Other than that, we've covered all of the policies. So I'm looking for some final, I see a couple hands. We'll go to some final comments. Trustee Pattison.
I'm not sure that Trustee Danko was done there.
You weren't done? You added a period. What more did you want to do? Trustee Danko?
I don't want to mess with your
The flow?
your
We were
flow.
doing so well.
I know. If there was a desire to send this back to committee, I'm not going to move that. I do think, I understand the piece, we have people accommodation reviews that fall under this, and what we haven't quite captured is that staff, students, and community are all stakeholders in our facilities, and that suggests consultation, that suggests that we get feedback from them when we do make changes to our facilities. So perhaps that one piece is missing, but I don't have a concrete suggestion, and I'm not going to move that it go back to committee.
Okay. Out of fear, Trustee Danko is not moving to go back to committee. Other feedback? I mean, we could ask, we simply could ask, in terms of the other reference that you had suggested, Trustee Danko, whether it's the community word you suggested or a slight alternative. I'm sure the committee will look at it briefly, but as long as we're happy with this high-level concept, we can put a period, I'm sure, without board approval. I hope. So we can take that back. But in terms of the actual content, we'll put the actual words aside, but in terms of content, is there any difficulty with the statement? Trustee Deeth?
I think Trustee Pattison had his hand up. No? Oh, okay, sorry. It's important that we get this right. And like I said, again, I appreciate the time that you put in. And so I'm not fearful. I'll put forward that we send this one back. And if it gets shot down, it gets shot down.
Okay. A motion to send back the facilities pillar to the committee. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Pattison, thank you. Comments, questions? Seeing none. The only question that I would ask, not to hang anything up, would just be with what suggestion? It gets so I'm hearing that the wording and the periods and some of that could be cleaned up a little bit, but in terms of the content, are there any? My question would be, are there any content concerns? Because if there is, then the committee can act on that. But other than wordsmithing, I'm not sure it really gives the committee much to work on, other than to send something very similar back. But Trustee Deeth, if I'm missing something, please.
I think to clean up the language, but I think also, as Trustee Danko stated, about, I said it as a good neighbor, but I think probably Trustee Danko said it better.
Okay. So the concept of consultation or whatnot. Okay. Thank you. So we have a mover, we have a seconder. No further comments. All in favor? We have Trustees Bingham, Pattison, Mulholland, Danko, Deeth. Those opposed, Trustee Hicks, Beatty, White, Student Trustees Jail and High. The motion carries. So now to the motion as the original one stood, which is the, by the way, this also now includes fraud management. So back to the actual report, we've got through all the parts of Part A. Are there any questions at all to the rest of the report? Go ahead, Trustee Beatty.
To lighten the mood, if you thought this was fun, we meet again on October 4th. That's a Wednesday. We're moving to a new date and time. We're moving to a later time slot, 5 o'clock. You'll find us on the dial. Please do drop by. We will be here having some important conversation, but we do have an open seat on the committee, so perhaps if you're available and you want to come and take it for a test drive, we will be meeting next Wednesday, October the 4th. That's 2 Wednesdays hence, and that will be at 5 o'clock. And I forgot to include that as part of the body of the report. My apologies.
Okay, thank you. So now we're back to the report itself. Are there any final comments on the committee's report, parts A and B? As, I guess not amended, it's a referral. So without the, so the approval will be for everything except for the facilities pillar. Trustee Deeth to the report.
I just want to say that I think this is great, the fraud, the development of the proposed policy. Again, I know a lot of work has gone into this, but I think it's great that we're doing this.
Thank you. That's noted that Trustee Deeth has approved fraud. Further discussion? Seeing none. Okay, so to the motion, just reminding everyone that it excludes the referral of the facilities pillar. Everything else is included. All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. So the committee gets to discuss one pillar next month, and only one pillar, according to the board. So with that, item number 8, Parent Involvement Committee report from September 12th. Trustee Deeth or Trustee Danko? Trustee Danko?
Thank you. Through the chair, the Parent Involvement Committee met on September the 12th and had their first meeting of this year. So they just did an overview of the purpose of PIC for members. There are a number of new members, I believe, and went through norms and values, terms of reference. There are school council training modules that are available. PIC runs these, or the Parent Involvement Committee runs these, and they're in October. There is a communication that I think is available on our website, and certainly I've sent them out to my parent councils or school councils. They're a great opportunity for school councils to understand a bit more about what the ministry legislation says about school councils and what their role is, and moving them away from just fundraising to being advisory council to the principal. And of course, they went through their typical standing items. With that, I'll move the report.
Thank you, Trustee Danko. Do we have a seconder? Trustee Deeth, thank you. Questions, comments on the PIC report? PIC, yes. Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous, thank you very much. Item number 9, Special Education Advisory Committee. Trustee Johnstone was the only trustee in attendance. Looking for another trustee then to bring the report. Trustee Deeth? Or Vice Chair Beatty? You can be the default for Alex if you put on your Alex hat and shoes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll be brief. What trustees will see before them is the committee report from the Special Education Advisory Committee. The meeting was held actually at the end of last school year, June 14th. It was really just a series of updates from both the trustee to the committee, and you'll also see updates that were brought to the committee from the superintendent, which is Dr. Janice Tomlinson, who unfortunately isn't here this evening. So I would move the report, and if there are any questions, we would take them at that time.
Thank you very much. Do we have a seconder? Seconded by Trustee Deeth. Thank you. Questions, comments? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. Item 10, resolution to committee of the whole private session as per Education Act 2072B. Do we have a motion? Trustee Danko, seconded by Trustee Bingham. All in favor? Unanimous. Thank you very much. We will go to private session. We'll be back in public session to finish the rest of the agenda. we have quorum? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now we do. Okay, thank you, everyone. We're back in public session. Item number 11, report from Committee of the Whole private session from just a moment ago. Go to the Vice Chair for the verbal report.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. It's my pleasure to present the report of private session of Committee of the Whole held earlier this evening, that the Governance Committee report from September 12, 2017 be received.
Seconder. We have a seconder. Seconded by Trustee Deeth. Questions, comments? All in favor? That is unanimous. Thank you very much. And now we move to oral reports. An exciting time. So we look to our student trustees for both local activities and Ontario Student Trustees Association update. Who is kicking it off? Ruby, go ahead.
Okay, so in terms of OSTA, the fall general meeting is in early November, and we're really excited to say that we're attending the conference. We're looking forward to learning more about the skills and abilities we need to bring to the table to be successful in our role. And we're also excited to network with some of the most bright student leaders in the province. Morgan and I would also like to share that we were both selected as committee co-chairs for different committees in OSTA. So Morgan is co-chair of the Progress Committee. I'm co-chair of the Indigenous Relations Committee. Respectively, those committees are responsible for the professional development of the student trustees and ensuring that the relationship between OSTA and Indigenous youth in the province is one of empowerment and understanding. And we're both really excited to step into those roles and learn from them. So that's OSTA.
Cool. So for local activities, we're excited to say that our first Student Senate date is coming up on October 12th, which is very soon. This year, we're going to continue the awesome tradition of having both secondary and elementary school senates, since we felt that this breadth of student voice is very valuable. However, it's important to note that our first meeting will only be for secondary senate, and that's because we want to discuss the Senate liaison position with the group of secondary students before holding an elementary Senate, and also for us to get our footing a bit in our role as Senate co-chairs. And since we are just getting started, we hope to bring a more fulsome report on Student Senate in the coming weeks and months. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. And your new superintendent lead is Superintendent Denemy this year? I have that right? Awesome, so you guys are going to be quite the team with Trustee Deeth and whatnot, so we look forward to all of your great updates. Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for our student trustees? Go ahead, Trustee Pattison.
Just a congratulations on being appointed to those roles as co-chair, and we're proud of you guys and looking forward to hearing about that progress. Thank you.
Yes, you were those bright students that you alluded to earlier, so good for the other boards to liaise with you. Mr. Director.
So through you, Mr. Chair, I'll be quick with my director's update. I'd like to begin by saying thank you for the trustees who were able to make the director's breakfast on August 29th. At that meeting, we launched our new, not launched, we came back to our reimagined vision, and we introduced the 2017-18 board annual plan, and we discussed the importance of leadership and wellness, and the importance of leadership to influence and move strategic direction goals forward. So thank you for those who attended. Under positive culture and well-being, it was great. I was able to go to some new staff orientations to welcome new staff. We've had a lot of staff engaged in this building from our summer institutions where we had hundreds of staff giving of their time, educators to further develop their leadership skills from our schools and our service departments. Also on August 30th, we welcomed new OCTU staff and clerical staff on September 27th coming up, so looking forward to those sessions. Under student learning achievement, as you know, our EQAO results have come up and schools were engaged just Friday on September 22nd, analyzing their results, looking for patterns and trends. We continue to remind people that it is one way in terms of we get to know our students, and that snapshot is an important snapshot, but what we do with it is more important in terms of moving our agenda forward. And of course, more information will be coming in our student learning achievement report in November. In terms of effective communication, we had a great first day as CHCH was at Ridgemount School, and some other people around this horseshoe were also present. I'm very thankful I didn't have the 6 a.m. time slot. 7:30 a.m. was fine for me, but it was exciting to see CH News highlight our school by showing a school that's been renovated under school renewal, having our chair and our trustee, Don Danko, who was there as well, plus our school principals speak about the pride of their school and their school community. That was great, a great first day. Under school renewal, I continue to be excited about how we move forward a key initiative trustees around this, the Sir John A. Macdonald Community Hub. We'll have a report in December, but as we work through this process, there's a lot of interest out there, and we'll continue to give updates of finance and facilities. In terms of partnership, I continue to invest some time in key partnerships, one being with public health, who is going to provide some direction around our high priority schools plan, because we know we can't do it alone. Public health has engaged both school boards multiple times around their delivery model, and they've engaged us in terms of what would it look like for all schools to have some universal support, and what would it look like to really intervene and give direct, or what they call Tier 3 support to schools with high priority. So looking forward to that partnership continuing to evolve. As well as some of you participated in Telling Tales, we were pretty active on September 17th on Sunday in the Flamborough area there, and great publicity and great engagement of our community with our staff and students. Also, we continue to see great things with our Hamilton Industry Education Council. I continue to participate on that board as they continue to enhance experiential learning opportunities for our students. As you saw in terms of our elementary robotics last year, they were a big partner in supporting that and continue to be a partner. And continue to participate in the Hamilton Community Foundation as a board member, as one of their priorities is education, as you're aware of their advocate strategy to try to improve student outcomes, improve graduation rates by focusing on the middle school years, and that is something we want to stay close to and support. I want to close with something, and it's very important that trustees know, and it's not because I didn't want to acknowledge this person or have a celebration for her, but Pat Stones would be very upset if she knew I was giving her public acknowledgement tonight. Pat's last day is tomorrow, and some of you might say, well, why did you as the director not organize something? Well, I tried in June, and Pat has been very clear with me that her wish is to move on to retirement, and those who want to acknowledge me will find their way to acknowledge me, because that's how Pat is. But I just want to let people know that Pat's last day is tomorrow, then she has some vacation time, but she has given 39 plus years to this organization, and her last 2 years must have been her most exciting 2 years. That's my assumption, but you'll have to ask her. But I am so thankful for her commitment, her customer service, her loyalty. She has made my first 2 years as director just so seamless, as she has so much knowledge of the organization. But I also then welcome Leslie Carrier, who's here tonight, who's going to be taking on that role and supporting me in the director's office moving forward. So if you get a chance to see Pat, send her an email, give her a call. But that was her wish, but I had to put it on the agenda tonight. And if you tell her that I did say it, just tell her that it was because I felt pressure by trustees to acknowledge her. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Director. Well, we'll send her that YouTube clip. Yeah, there you go. Any questions or comments for the director? Thank you very much, Mr. Director. And we'll go to the chair's report. You know, as time ticks away, I'll try to make this quick, not to prolong any updates. By this point of the meeting, I think we've usually said everything there is. There's just a couple things to summarize from September, and I must say, school startup is always something. And you don't quite know what to expect. And this September first week, I think, was pretty exciting to say the least. And the one piece that makes me really proud about HWDSB are the themes that emerged throughout that week. And most of you being a part of that, you can see, our strategic directions really come to life. And when you look back at that week in terms of what we did, the themes of school renewal and partnerships were front and center. We started the day at up in Don Danko's, riding over at Ridgemount, looking at the new additions and everything else happening at the school, which was really neat to celebrate. The next day, we were over in Trustee Pattison's area with Councillor Matt Green, with Adelaide Hoodless, and then jumping over to Memorial City School in terms of major capital updates there. Once again, both on the concepts of partnerships, but as well as school renewal. Later in the week, we joined MPP Andrea Horvath in front of Sir John A. Macdonald in terms of the hub community projects there with Trustee Bingham. Once again, another partner to add to our list and support for that concept in downtown Hamilton. And of course, all of that hinged on effective communication. And the support that week from Sean McKillop and his team, absolutely outstanding. He's so busy right now, he can't even hear me. He's working on communications. He doesn't even notice. But Sean's team, under Manny and everyone else, has been absolutely phenomenal that week. And it's really, really nice to have that support and the clarity going out to our system, both internally and externally. So that was really a pleasure to work with Sean as the first week we worked together in that capacity, but definitely an asset to both this Board of Trustees, our staff, students, and everyone else that you can imagine. And of course, the underlying theme throughout all of this is the concept of student achievement. So we see all of that coming together in our renewed facilities, in our renewed partnerships. And I'm not sure if we've ever had so many partnerships on the go. We talk about our capital projects, but the partnerships and the folks that we're talking with around the Sir John A. Hub and other facilities, it almost seems like daily or weekly. We're bugging Dave Anderson with some other facility partnership that he has to somehow pull together and, yesterday. So it's really phenomenal. And of course, the support that we have in our schools from our superintendents, from human resources, from program, you name it. Everyone has really stepped up this month, and just really refreshing to enter a school year with that much energy. And it's nice for everyone to be prepared. It always seems sometimes when you start September, you're 2 steps behind somehow from June. But to see the whole organization come together is really great, especially with certain bus delays and whatnot. Handling those situations and the leadership around this table and around the other side of the horseshoe, definitely very, very appreciated. So that's the update. If every month can be like this, it would be very, very proactive and very productive for the organization. So through you, Mr. Director, please pass your thanks to the organization, because all the feedback we've received from trustees this month has been quite positive in terms of what we've seen on the ground. So thank you so much. And with that, looking for a motion to adjourn. Trustee Hicks, followed by Trustee Mulholland. All in favor? That is unanimous.
Such a cool job. Wednesday at 4. What? Morgan, was the meeting set for Wednesday at 4 or Tuesday?
This coming up meeting with us, Tuesday.
Tuesday. Yes, that's what the email said.
Yep, and that's what I have.
That's what I have as well.